The moon hung low over the vast Texas desert, its pale light casting long shadows across the desolate landscape. The rumble of a Peterbilt 389 engine echoed down Highway 83, steady and unrelenting, as Diana Pierce kept her eyes on the road ahead. She was hauling a heavy load of industrial parts, nothing out of the ordinary, but tonight something felt different. Too quiet. No trucker chatter on the CB radio. No signs of other vehicles for miles. Her instincts, honed from years of military experience, warned her something was wrong. In her side mirror, she caught a glimpse of headlights, 3 sets, all black SUVs, trailing her at a steady distance. For the last 20 miles, they had maintained formation, never speeding up or dropping back. They weren't ordinary travelers, or even highway patrol. No, this was something else. "Come on," she muttered under her breath. "Make your move or back off." She tightened her grip on the steering wheel, her mind racing through tactical options. On paper, she was just another trucker, but that was far from the truth. Diana had once been a tactical officer in the Navy, part of a classified response unit. After leaving the military, she'd sought the simplicity of life on the road, but old habits died hard. Tonight, it seemed those habits might save her life. The CB radio crackled suddenly, startling her out of her thoughts. Static, then silence again. It was a trick used to test if someone was listening in. Her eyes darted to the rearview mirror as one of the SUVs accelerated, pulling up alongside her cab. The windows were tinted too dark to see inside, but a glint of metal confirmed her suspicion. Someone was armed. A voice barked out over a loudspeaker from the SUV. "Pull over, lady. Now, we just want to talk." Diana snorted. "Yeah, I bet you do," she muttered. Talking wasn't their goal, not out here in the middle of nowhere. Without hesitating, she reached beneath her seat and retrieved the small device she had modified, a tactical CB jammer. She flipped it on, knowing it would scramble any attempt to coordinate over their radios. Next, she glanced at the road ahead. A sharp curve with a steep embankment. Perfect. The SUV's window rolled down slightly. "Last warning," the voice growled. "Pull over or we'll make you." Not interested, Diana called out through her open window. The response was immediate. Gunfire erupted, the ping of bullets striking her cab echoing like firecrackers. However, the cartel enforcers hadn't anticipated one crucial detail. Diana's truck wasn't standard. She had reinforced the doors with military-grade plating after a close call on a similar route a year ago. The rounds barely scratched the surface. "Big mistake," Diana muttered, adrenaline surging. With a sudden yank of the wheel, she veered sharply into the SUV's lane, slamming the heavy front bumper of her truck into its rear quarter panel. The SUV's driver swerved wildly, tires screeching as the vehicle spun out of control and careened toward the embankment. It rolled twice before coming to a rest in a cloud of dust. 2 more SUVs accelerated in response, boxing her in from both sides. Diana gritted her teeth. They were serious, but they had no idea who they were dealing with. The curve ahead loomed closer. Timing was everything. She downshifted, pushing the Peterbilt to its limits. The engine roared, and the massive truck surged forward. The SUVs struggled to keep pace. One of them attempted to cut in front of her, but Diana was ready. She clipped its rear, sending it skidding off the road. Another down. The final SUV stayed close, trying to force her into the guardrail. Diana allowed herself a grim smile. Time to show them what real tactical driving looked like. She downshifted again, forcing the SUV into the narrowest part of the curve. As it tried to stay with her, its driver lost control, the lighter frame unable to handle the speed. The SUV fishtailed, smashing into the guardrail and coming to a dead stop. Diana pressed on, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. After a few more miles, the road stretched out into open terrain again. She checked her mirrors. No more pursuers. For now. 20 minutes later, Diana pulled into Myra's truck stop, an old but reliable station near the outskirts of a small desert town. The smell of diesel and grilled food greeted her as she parked the Peterbilt near the far end of the lot. Mira Espinoza, the owner, rushed out to meet her, worry etched on her face. "Diana, we heard gunshots over the CB. What happened?" "Cartel," Diana replied, climbing down from the cab. She wiped sweat from her brow and scanned the lot. A few truckers lingered outside the diner, their conversations hushed as they eyed her truck. Myra's expression darkened. They're getting bolder. Word is, they've been moving in on more routes. 3 drivers disappeared last month alone. Police won't do a damn thing, probably getting paid off. Diana nodded, her mind flashing to the SUVs. This wasn't random intimidation. The coordination, the firepower, it all pointed to something organized. But why? Cartels didn't usually target truckers unless there was a larger agenda. I need information, she said. Anything you've heard about new activity, shipments, leadership changes. Mira hesitated for a moment, then gave a resigned nod. Come inside. We'll talk. But be careful, Diana. These guys, they're not ordinary criminals. Their new boss, Ortega, they say he's got military training, and he's more brutal than the last. So am I, Diana replied quietly. Inside the diner, over a strong cup of black coffee, Diana began to piece together the puzzle. Mira shared rumors of heavily guarded convoys and shipments that didn't fit the cartel's usual patterns. Truckers were being forced into protection deals, or worse, disappearing entirely. As Diana listened, a cold realization crept in. This wasn't just cartel business. Something bigger was moving through the highways she traveled, and it was only a matter of time before it caught up to her. Her phone buzzed. A message from Logan read. Heard you had trouble. Need backup? Diana typed back, not yet, but soon. Stay ready. The sun was beginning to rise over the desert, painting the sky in hues of orange and red. It reminded Diana of distant flames, a warning of the firestorm about to engulf the region. The cartel had made their first mistake, and she was going to make sure it was their last. Diana Pierce sat at a corner booth inside Myra's truck stop, the early morning light filtering through dusty windows. The diner was quiet, the usual chatter among truckers replaced by tension and wary glances. Diana stirred her coffee absent-mindedly, her mind still on the SUVs that had attacked her the night before. This wasn't a random act of intimidation. No ordinary cartel went to that kind of trouble. Across the table, Mira Espinoza leaned forward, lowering her voice. Rafael Ortega's cartel has been stepping up operations, Mira explained. But it's not just drugs. They've taken over entire routes, shipping, logistics, even small trucking companies. They're muscling in hard. Too organized, Diana said, echoing Myra's thoughts. This isn't just about turf wars. There's more to this. Mira nodded grimly. I've been hearing things from my contacts. Ortega's men are moving something special, something they don't want anyone looking at. And from what I've seen, they have backing that's bigger than just local corruption. Diana raised an eyebrow. Backed by who? Don't know yet, Mira admitted. But whoever they are, they've got pull. Police chiefs, border patrol. Everyone's looking the other way. Even some of the federal agents I trust are hitting roadblocks. After finishing her coffee, Diana walked back outside to her truck. She glanced around the lot. A few rigs were parked near the pumps, but one vehicle stood out, a dark sedan, parked at an odd angle near the edge of the lot. Its tinted windows gave her the same unsettling feeling she'd had last night. Surveillance, she muttered under her breath. Her phone buzzed. Logan Reed, her old military contact, had replied to her message from earlier. Meet me at the usual place. We need to talk. The safe house was a rundown garage on the outskirts of a nearby industrial area. Diana entered through a side door, finding Logan already at work on his laptop. He was a tall, lean man with sharp eyes and a perpetual air of caution. Diana, he greeted, closing the laptop. You're in deep, aren't you? Deeper than I expected, she replied. Cartel hit me on the road last night. SUVs, armed men. They weren't just trying to scare me. They were trying to take me out. Logan frowned. That's not how cartels operate unless there's something big at stake. You think this Ortega guy is moving more than just drugs? Yeah, Diana nodded. Myra's hearing rumors about high-value shipments. Something heavily guarded. I need to know what they're transporting and who's backing them. Logan sat back, rubbing his chin. I've heard whispers. There's a lot of traffic between Texas and the border lately. Convoys moving under the radar, no official inspections. Could be weapons, but he hesitated, his gaze sharpening. There's another possibility. You ever heard of the Beast Project? Diana stiffened. Beast Project? That sounds like Black Ops. It is, Logan confirmed. Classified research, biological warfare experiments. If the rumors are true, they supposedly shut it down years ago, but projects like that don't just disappear. They get outsourced to other players, cartels, private contractors, people willing to do the dirty work. Bioweapons? Diana let out a slow breath, the pieces starting to fall into place. If Ortega's cartel is handling something like that, it explains everything. The military-grade tactics, the police turning a blind eye. And the reason they want you dead, Logan added grimly. You've seen too much. Logan managed to track down a cartel-controlled warehouse near the outskirts of Rio Bravo, a small border town. It was rumored to be a staging area for shipments moving across the region. Diana and Logan parked a mile away, using night vision binoculars to observe the site. The warehouse was heavily fortified, with armed guards patrolling the perimeter. Several trucks were parked near loading bays, and Diana noted how carefully the guards handled certain containers. See that? Logan whispered. Those containers are reinforced. Temperature-controlled, too. Definitely not drugs. Diana's gaze narrowed as one of the containers was unloaded. Workers wearing protective gear moved around it, as if handling something volatile. Suddenly, the container shuddered violently. One of the workers stumbled back, his voice barely audible from their position. Dios mío! It's moving! The guards barked orders, and within seconds, a senior enforcer appeared, tall, with a scar across his face. He inspected the container, then turned to the workers. Whatever was inside the box was causing panic. That's Ortega's right-hand man, Logan murmured. Carlos Scorpion Vasquez. He doesn't show up unless things are serious. The tension in the air spiked as Scorpion gave a command. One of the workers hesitated, fear evident in his body language. Scorpion didn't wait. A single gunshot echoed through the night, and the worker collapsed. The rest scrambled to secure the container. Christ, Logan muttered. What the hell are they transporting? Diana's gut twisted. Whatever it wasn't just dangerous. It was something they were willing to kill to keep hidden. Get the camera, she ordered. We need proof. Logan quickly began recording as more trucks were loaded with similar containers. Diana noticed another strange detail, military precision in how the convoy was organized. These weren't just cartel thugs. They had training, discipline, and access to high-tech equipment. The two of them quietly retreated back to their vehicle, but as they drove away, headlights appeared in the distance. The cartel had spotted them. An SUV surged forward, its engine roaring. Diana didn't wait. She slammed on the accelerator, swerving through back roads to lose their pursuers. Jesus, they're not letting up, Logan shouted as gunfire peppered the road behind them. Hang on. Diana yanked the wheel, cutting through a dirt trail that led into a dry riverbed. The SUV skidded behind them, unable to keep up with her maneuvering. Moments later, the cartel vehicle spun out and crashed into a rock formation. Breathing heavily, Diana slowed the truck once they were far enough away. Logan glanced at her, shaking his head. You've pissed off some very powerful people, Diana. Good, she said coldly. Now we know what they're hiding. Logan sighed. We've got footage, but it's not enough. If we're right about this being a bioweapon operation, we'll need more than just video. We need names, documents, something that ties Ortega to the larger players behind this. Then we dig deeper, Diana replied. Her eyes were hard, reflecting the glow of the dashboard lights. This isn't just about me anymore. If they're moving weapons like that across our highways, it's a threat to everyone on the road. As the truck rumbled towards safety, Diana made a silent vow. Ortega's cartel had declared war, but they had no idea who they were fighting. This was far from over. The desert stretched out like a vast, moonlit sea as Diana Pierce parked her rig at an abandoned rest stop. The night was cold and silent, save for the occasional distant cry of coyotes. Logan stood beside her, double-checking their equipment. He had downloaded the footage of the cartel's container transfer, but both of them knew it wasn't enough. The world wouldn't believe what they had seen without more evidence. We need to hit another convoy, Diana said, her voice low and steady. "We need to see what's inside one of those containers." Logan nodded. "I don't like it, but you're right. Whatever's in those boxes has Ortega's men scared out of their minds. Scorpion killed that worker just to keep things quiet. That's not typical cartel behavior." "No, it isn't," Diana agreed, tightening her gloves. "They're hiding something bigger than drugs or weapons. We're going to find out what." Logan glanced at the laptop mounted in their surveillance van. "We've got 3 possible routes the convoys use. Ortega's men rotate schedules, but based on the chatter Mira intercepted, there's another shipment coming through tonight." Diana's eyes narrowed. "Good. Let's be ready." The road was a desolate ribbon of asphalt winding through rocky hills. Diana's Peterbilt cruised at a steady speed, headlights cutting through the darkness. Logan's voice came through her earpiece. "Convoy just past the junction. ETA to your position, 5 minutes. You sure about this?" Diana smiled grimly. "I've done worse." She flicked on her rear spotlights, illuminating the empty road behind her. The plan was simple: block the convoy's path, force them into a choke point, and seize one of the containers. Of course, simple plans rarely went off without complications. "Convoy approaching," Logan warned. 4 trucks, 2 SUVs leading, 2 following. Armed escorts. Diana adjusted her side mirror. Sure enough, a set of headlights appeared over the horizon. As the convoy closed in, she spotted the same reinforced trucks from the previous night, their trailers glistening under the moonlight. The SUVs flanked them like wolves protecting a prized kill. "Let's do this," Diana muttered. She slowed her truck, bringing it to a stop in the middle of the road. The lead SUV screeched to a halt, and several armed men jumped out, weapons drawn. One of them approached her cab, barking orders in Spanish. "Move the truck," he demanded. Diana didn't flinch. "You're trespassing on a trucker route. Turn around and leave." The man glared at her, then spoke into his radio. Moments later, the second SUV pulled alongside the first, and a familiar figure emerged, Scorpion, Ortega's enforcer. His scarred face twisted into a sneer as he recognized Diana. "You again," he said in a low, dangerous voice. "I told Ortega you'd be trouble. Guess I was right." "You should have listened to your instincts," Diana replied calmly. "This is the last shipment you're moving through here." Scorpion chuckled darkly and signaled to his men. "Kill her." Before the cartel gunman could react, Diana slammed her foot on the gas, ramming the lead SUV. The force sent it skidding sideways into the rocky terrain. Gunfire erupted, bullets pinging off her truck's armored cab. Diana swerved, using the Peterbilt's bulk to shield herself as Logan's backup team moved in from a side road. "Go, go!" Logan's voice crackled over the radio. "We've got them pinned." The firefight intensified as Logan's team exchanged shots with the cartel enforcers. Diana maneuvered her truck to block one of the cargo trailers, forcing it to a stop. She jumped out, her sidearm drawn, and sprinted toward the container. "Cover me," she shouted. Logan provided suppressing fire as she reached the trailer's control panel. The container's locks were secured by a digital system, but it was damaged in the crash. Sparks flew from the locking mechanism as Diana forced it open with a crowbar. A blast of cold air hit her as the container doors swung wide. Inside, rows of high-tech restraints lined the walls, each one designed to hold something large. At first, she saw nothing but fog from the temperature-controlled interior. Then she heard it, a deep, guttural growl. "What the hell is that?" Logan's voice crackled in her ear. Diana stepped cautiously inside, her flashlight cutting through the mist. The growling grew louder, and suddenly a shadow shifted near the back of the container. 2 glowing, amber eyes locked onto her. "Logan, we've got a problem," she whispered. The creature lunged. The impact threw Diana backward, her flashlight skittering across the container floor. She rolled to her feet, drawing her weapon. The creature, large, feline in shape but grotesquely enhanced, stalked toward her with unnatural agility. Its skin was a patchwork of scars and cybernetic implants, and its muscles rippled unnaturally under its fur. Diana fired. The shots hit their mark but barely slowed the beast. It roared in pain and rage, swiping at her with claws that gouged deep into the metal walls. She ducked under its attack and scrambled out of the container. Logan, we've got an enhanced predator loose. Say that again? Logan shouted, his voice filled with alarm. Just get ready to move. The beast leapt from the container, its amber eyes scanning the chaotic scene. It moved with terrifying speed, targeting the cartel gunmen first. In seconds, it tore through their formation, bodies hitting the ground as screams echoed into the night. Scorpion's men panicked, firing wildly at the creature. Their bullets barely penetrated its enhanced hide. Fall back, Scorpion yelled. Regroup. The convoy disintegrated into chaos as the beast continued its rampage. Diana and Logan's team regrouped near one of the disabled trucks. Whatever that thing is, it's not stopping, Logan panted. We need to put it down. Not without more firepower, Diana said grimly. Focus on containing it. We can't let it reach any nearby towns. As the beast rampaged across the convoy, Diana noticed its movements were becoming more erratic. The cold air from the container had been keeping it sedated. Now that it was warming up, its aggression was escalating. Mira said they've got thermal controls on these containers, Diana muttered. They're not just transporting it, they're keeping it under strict environmental conditions. Which means it has a weakness, Logan realized. If we can lower its body temperature. Exactly, Diana said. We lure it back into the cold. Logan relayed the plan to the team. Using flares and gunfire, they drew the creature's attention, herding it back toward the open container. The beast resisted, roaring in fury, but the combined efforts of Diana's team finally forced it inside. Diana slammed the container doors shut and activated the remaining cooling system. Frost spread across the metal as the beast's growls subsided into low, angry hisses. Logan leaned against the truck, catching his breath. Remind me never to take a job involving experimental monsters. Diana wiped sweat from her brow. This is bigger than we thought. We need to expose this before it's too late. As dawn broke over the desert, Diana and Logan surveyed the wreckage. Scorpion had escaped, but many of his men hadn't. The convoy was in ruins, and the captured container was now under Diana's control. Myra's voice came over the radio. You've stirred up a hornet's nest. Ortega's going to retaliate. Let him, Diana replied. We're done running. It's time to take the fight to him. She knew the next steps wouldn't be easy. The cartel wouldn't stop, and the people backing them would do everything in their power to keep the truth buried. But now Diana had proof, a monster hidden in the shadows of America's highways, and she was going to make sure the world knew about it. The desert wind howled as Diana's convoy moved under the cover of darkness. A network of trusted truckers had joined her cause, all of them sick of the cartel's chokehold on the highways. They drove in silence, their CB radios tuned to a secure frequency. In the distance, headlights bobbed and shimmered like stars scattered across the desert floor. Diana's Peterbilt led the formation, Logan riding shotgun beside her. Behind them, 2 trucks hauled decoy cargo designed to draw any surveillance away from their real shipment, the captured predator in its reinforced container. They planned to relocate it to a secure location where they could analyze it without interference. Time was critical. The cartel wouldn't let this loss go unanswered. Any signs of movement? Diana asked, her eyes scanning the side mirrors. Nothing yet, Logan replied, his gaze fixed on the monitor linked to the convoy's drone. But it's too quiet. Ortega won't just let this go. Diana tightened her grip on the wheel. They had the upper hand for now, but she knew Ortega was calculating his next move. The cartel had resources, and they weren't the only threat. Corrupt law enforcement and hidden players within the government were just as dangerous. Suddenly, Logan's radio crackled. This is Ethan. Got a problem up here. Ethan Carmichael's voice had a tense edge. He was one of the newer members of the network, a rugged, reliable trucker who had proven himself in several skirmishes. Diana trusted him. At least she had until now. What's the problem, Ethan? She asked, suspicion creeping into her voice. Roadblock. State police, Ethan said. They're asking questions. Looks like they're tipped off about our route. Diana and Logan exchanged a glance. State police? Logan muttered. That's not a coincidence. How'd they know we were coming through here? Diana asked. I don't know, Ethan answered quickly. We can try another route, but I'm worried this might be a coordinated hit. Diana's instincts screamed at her. Something was off. She trusted her team, but if there was a leak, the convoy was in serious danger. All right, she said cautiously. Hold position for now. Logan, check for alternate routes. We'll circle back if we have to. As Logan tapped at the laptop, Diana kept her eyes on the road ahead. The tension built like static in the air. This wasn't just bad luck. Someone had tipped off the authorities. 2 hours later, the convoy pulled into a remote truck stop near the border. The drivers exited their vehicles, exchanging uneasy glances. Diana climbed out of her rig and approached Ethan, who was pacing near one of the fuel pumps. His face was pale, his jaw clenched. What happened back there? Diana asked directly. I'm telling you, I don't know, Ethan replied, avoiding her gaze. They were waiting for us. I thought we were clear after the last checkpoint. Yeah? And how'd they know to set up a roadblock exactly where we'd be? Logan asked, stepping up beside her. Ethan bristled. Look, I've done everything you've asked. I've put my rig on the line just like everyone else. You think I'm the rat? Diana crossed her arms. I don't want to believe that, Ethan, but someone sold us out. And until I figure out who, I can't take any chances. Ethan hesitated, his expression softening. I've got a family, Diana. The cartel, they've got people everywhere. If they know who I am. Diana's gaze hardened. They threatened your family, didn't they? He nodded slowly. They said if I didn't feed them information, my wife and daughter wouldn't make it out alive. For a moment, Diana said nothing. She knew exactly how the cartel operated, using fear and coercion to break people. Ethan wasn't the first person they had pushed into betrayal, and he wouldn't be the last. You should have told me, she said quietly, and risk them killing my family? Ethan snapped. You don't know what they're capable of. Diana took a step closer, her voice cold and steady. I know exactly what they're capable of, but you put everyone here at risk by keeping this from us. Good people are going to die because of it. Ethan looked away, shame clouding his features. Logan sighed. So what's the play? We can't just let him walk. Diana thought for a long moment, weighing her options. Finally, she spoke. We get his family out, safe and far away. After that, Ethan's going to help us finish this. Ethan's eyes widened in shock. You do that? After what I did? We don't leave anyone behind, Diana replied. But if you cross us again, you won't get a second chance. Before they could make their next move, the sound of engines roared in the distance. Diana's hand went to her sidearm. Logan grabbed his radio. Incoming. Multiple vehicles, he warned. Headlights appeared over the horizon. SUVs, trucks, and motorbikes. The cartel had found them. The convoy scrambled into defensive positions, armed drivers taking cover behind their rigs. Gunfire erupted as the attackers opened fire. Diana ducked behind her truck, barking orders through the radio. Hold the line. Don't let them breach the convoy. Logan returned fire, cursing under his breath. They came fast. Must have had a scout watching us. Ethan joined the fight, taking position near one of the decoy trucks. Diana noticed the way he fought, with desperation, as if trying to redeem himself. But redemption wouldn't come easy. The cartel forces pressed hard, their tactics showing coordination. Scorpion was likely leading the attack, determined to retrieve the container at all costs. Diana knew they couldn't hold out forever. Logan, we need an exit, she shouted. Working on it, he replied, scanning the terrain with a drone feed. There's a side road east of here. Leads to a dry riverbed. It's risky, but it's our best shot. Then we take it, Diana said. The convoy began retreating under covering fire, moving toward the side road. Diana's Peterbilt took the lead, its reinforced frame absorbing most of the incoming rounds. One by one, the other trucks followed, engines roaring as they tore through the desert. Scorpion's men pursued, but the terrain worked against them. Vehicles skidded and crashed as they struggled to keep up. The convoy reached the riverbed and pushed forward at full speed. We're clear, Logan reported as the last of the cartel vehicles disappeared from sight. For now. Diana exhaled slowly, tension easing from her shoulders. The ambush had been close, too close. She glanced at Ethan, who was wiping blood from a shallow cut on his arm. "You fought well," she said, her tone neutral. "Thanks," Ethan muttered, clearly unsure how to take the compliment. Diana stepped closer, lowering her voice. "This isn't over. Ortega will keep coming. If you want to protect your family, you need to be ready." Hours later, the convoy regrouped at another remote location. The drivers inspected their rigs for damage, patching bullet holes and replacing shattered windows. Mira contacted them through a secure channel, her voice laced with concern. "You made it out," she said. "But word's spreading. Ortega's losing control, and that makes him more dangerous." Diana nodded grimly. "We've got what he wants. He won't stop until he gets it." "Then we hit him first," Logan added. "Hard enough that he can't recover." Diana's gaze swept over the tired but determined faces around her. These weren't soldiers. They were ordinary people who had been pushed to the edge. But together, they had become something more. "We end this," Diana said quietly. "No more running. No more hiding. We take back the highways." The convoy prepared for the next phase of the fight. They weren't just truckers anymore. They were a resistance. And Ortega was about to find out what that meant. The convoy rolled steadily through the rugged terrain of South Texas, the truck's engines humming like a steady heartbeat. The sun was beginning to rise, casting long shadows across the rocky landscape. Diana Pierce sat at the wheel of her Peterbilt, her mind sharp and focused despite the exhaustion creeping into her bones. Last night's ambush had nearly cost them everything, and she knew the cartel wasn't finished. If anything, Ortega would escalate his efforts. Logan's voice crackled over the radio. "Checkpoint up ahead. Looks clear from here, but stay sharp." "Got it," Diana responded, scanning the road ahead. They were approaching a remote gas station, one of the few remaining trucker-friendly stops that hadn't yet fallen under cartel control. It was a critical checkpoint on their route, but she wasn't taking any chances. Behind her, the convoy slowed as they approached the station. Drivers disembarked cautiously, eyes constantly sweeping for signs of danger. Diana and Logan moved quickly to regroup with the others near the fuel pumps. "Ethan, check the perimeter," Diana ordered. Ethan nodded and jogged toward the station's outskirts, rifle slung across his shoulder. "Everything's holding together for now," Logan muttered, pulling a satellite phone from his pack. "But Ortega's going to make his next move soon. We can't keep dodging him forever." "We won't," Diana said. Her tone was cold and resolute. "We've got the edge now. The footage. The proof. He knows it, and that's why he's getting desperate." "Still," Logan replied cautiously, "desperate men do crazy things. We need to assume he's going to escalate." As if on cue, the radio suddenly erupted with static. Then came a voice, deep and chillingly familiar. "Scorpion." "Miss Pierce," the voice drawled in accented English. "You're making this far too entertaining. We both know this ends with you dead on the side of the road. Why not save everyone the trouble and hand over what belongs to us?" Diana snatched the radio mic. "You made a mistake the moment you thought you could control me, Scorpion. I don't scare easy. You want that shipment? Come and get it." A pause. Then, laughter crackled over the airwaves. "Oh, I intend to, but you won't see me coming." The transmission cut out abruptly, leaving only the ominous hum of static. Logan glanced at Diana with a worried frown. "That's not good," he said. "No," Diana agreed. "He's baiting us. But it's also a message. He's moving in. We don't have much time." The convoy pressed on, moving deeper into hostile territory. The landscape grew more desolate, dotted with crumbling outposts and abandoned structures. Logan monitored their drone surveillance feeds from the back of one of the rigs, searching for any signs of ambush points. "Multiple heat signatures," Logan called out through the radio. 5 SUVs shadowing us from the east. "Looks like Scorpion's crew." "Keep them at a distance," Diana ordered. "We'll set the trap at the canyon pass." She had chosen the canyon for its narrow, defensible terrain. With cliffs on either side and limited entry points, it was the perfect location to turn the tables on their pursuers. As they approached the canyon, Diana signaled the convoy to slow down. Ethan positioned his truck at the rear, forming a blockade with the other rigs. Meanwhile, Myra's voice crackled over the radio from a secure line. "You're cutting it close," Mira warned. "I've intercepted some chatter. Ortega's got reinforcements mobilizing, more than just Scorpion's usual thugs. They're serious about taking you out." "We're ready," Diana replied. "Just make sure you've got an extraction plan if things go sideways." Moments later, the first shots rang out. The SUVs had closed the distance and were moving fast, their engines roaring like angry beasts. Gunmen leaned out of the windows, firing wildly at the convoy. Diana ducked as bullets slammed into the side of her truck, denting the reinforced panels. "Return fire," she shouted. The convoy erupted into action. Drivers armed with rifles and shotguns fired from behind cover, forcing the attackers to slow their advance. Diana saw one of the SUVs skid out of control and crash into a rock formation, flames erupting from its engine. Logan's voice crackled urgently in her earpiece. "They've got more vehicles coming in from the north. We're getting boxed in." Diana clenched her jaw. "Hold the line. We're not letting them push us out." Through the haze of gunfire and smoke, Diana spotted a new vehicle approaching. It was a matte black armored SUV, moving with deliberate precision. Scorpion. He wasn't just another enforcer. He was a trained tactician, and this was his battlefield now. "Pierce." Scorpion's voice boomed through a loudspeaker. "This is your last warning. Surrender the cargo, and I might let some of you live." Diana grabbed her rifle and climbed onto the roof of her truck, scanning the area with her scope. She spotted Scorpion exiting the SUV, flanked by heavily armed men. "You want the cargo? Come and take it," she yelled, firing a warning shot that struck the ground near Scorpion's feet. Scorpion didn't flinch. Instead, he gave a signal, and his men began advancing in a coordinated assault. Diana realized immediately that this wasn't a typical cartel attack. These were professionals, possibly ex-military, moving with deadly precision. "Logan, we're outmatched here," she muttered. "We need a counteroffensive." "On it," Logan replied. "Drones armed. Just give me a target." Diana smirked. "Scorpion's truck? Let's see how he likes playing defense." Logan activated the drone's targeting system. A small missile streaked through the sky and struck Scorpion's armored SUV, sending it into a fiery explosion. The shockwave knocked several cartel gunmen off their feet. "Direct hit," Logan confirmed. Diana used the chaos to rally her team. "Push them back. Take the high ground." The truckers surged forward, using their knowledge of the terrain to gain the upper hand. Scorpion's forces began to falter under the combined assault. Despite their training, they weren't prepared for a sustained counterattack from such a well-organized group. Amid the gunfire, Diana spotted Scorpion retreating toward a rocky outcrop. He was shouting into a radio, likely calling for reinforcements. She couldn't let him escape. "I'm going after him," she told Logan. "Are you crazy?" Logan shouted. "You can't go alone." "I won't give him another chance to regroup," Diana snapped. "Cover me." With that, she broke from cover and sprinted across the battlefield. Bullets whizzed past her, but she didn't stop. Scorpion turned just in time to see her approaching, his eyes narrowing in recognition. "Pierce," he growled, drawing a combat knife. Diana tackled him before he could react, the two of them crashing to the ground in a flurry of punches and grappling moves. Scorpion was strong, but Diana's training gave her the edge. She delivered a sharp elbow to his jaw, knocking him off balance. "You should have stayed in the shadows," she hissed, pinning him to the ground. "Now you're going to tell me everything about Ortega, the shipments, and who's backing you." Scorpion spat blood and laughed bitterly. "You think you've won? This isn't over. Ortega's got plans you can't even imagine." "We'll see about that," Diana said, tightening the zip ties around his wrists. With Scorpion captured and his forces in disarray, the cartel retreated. The convoy drivers regrouped, tending to their wounded and assessing the damage. The ambush had been brutal, but they had survived. Logan approached, wiping sweat from his brow. "Nice work. You actually caught him." "Yeah," Diana replied, glaring at the bound enforcer. "But this is just the beginning. Ortega won't stop until we shut down his entire operation." Scorpion smirked defiantly. "You don't know what you're dealing with." This isn't just a cartel. It's something much bigger. Then it's time to take it down, Diana said coldly. Piece by piece. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the convoy prepared to move out. They had won a critical victory, but the war for the highways was far from over. Diana knew that the next battles would be even more dangerous. But she also knew one thing for certain. They weren't fighting alone anymore. The morning sun bathed the convoy as they crossed into a barren stretch of Texas desert, the rocky hills and scattered brush creating an endless, desolate landscape. The trucks moved in formation, keeping a cautious distance from one another. In the center of the line, a secured container with the captured predator lay dormant, surrounded by armed escorts. They were heading toward a temporary safe house, a fortified depot run by Myra's contacts. Inside the cab of her Peterbilt, Diana Pierce kept her hands steady on the wheel, her thoughts racing. Scorpion, now tied up and locked in the back of a security truck, was their most valuable asset. He knew the truth about the cartel's operation and, more importantly, who had authorized the transport of genetically enhanced creatures through U.S. highways. Logan's voice broke her train of thought. ETA to the depot is about 30 minutes. No signs of pursuit so far. Good, Diana responded. We need to hit Ortega where it hurts, and Scorpion's the key to making that happen. Assuming he talks, Logan replied. He's cartel. They don't usually give up their bosses without a fight. Diana frowned. He'll talk. He doesn't have a choice. At the depot, the convoy came to a stop behind a series of reinforced gates. Myra's contacts, former military contractors turned anti-cartel operatives, greeted them and quickly began securing the perimeter. Trucks were parked strategically to create a protective barrier around the container. Diana wasted no time. She headed toward the makeshift interrogation room where Scorpion was being held. Logan and Ethan followed close behind, both armed and ready for trouble. Scorpion sat in a metal chair under the harsh glare of a single overhead light. His wrists were bound with zip ties, and his face was bruised from their earlier fight. Despite his predicament, he still wore a defiant smirk. Here to gloat? He asked, his voice rough but mocking. Hardly, Diana replied coolly, pulling up a chair and sitting across from him. We're here to talk. You've lost, Scorpion. Your convoy's destroyed. Your men are dead or scattered, and Ortega is losing control. You think he's going to save you? Scorpion chuckled softly. You don't get it, do you? Ortega isn't the top of the food chain. He's just a middleman in something much bigger. You think taking me out makes a difference? It will once we expose everything, Diana said. We have footage of the creature your people were transporting. We know about the experiments, the bioengineering, and the people pulling your strings. Now you're going to tell us the rest? Scorpion's eyes darkened. If you think the people behind this are just going to roll over because you have some footage, you're dumber than I thought. They control the police, the military, and politicians. Hell, they've probably already started spinning their cover story. Logan crossed his arms. So what are they going to say? That it was a terrorist attack? A drug bust gone wrong? Something like that, Scorpion replied with a bitter smile. By the time this hits the news, they'll have painted you as the criminals. Diana leaned forward, her voice low and cold. Then you'd better start talking, or I'll let the rest of my team decide what to do with you. They've lost friends and family to this operation. I don't think they'll be as patient as I am. Scorpion hesitated for the first time, the weight of her words sinking in. He glanced at Logan and then back at Diana. You're serious. Dead serious, she replied. Finally, Scorpion exhaled heavily. Fine. I'll tell you what you want to know. But once this starts, there's no going back. The people behind this, they're not just going to let you live. Scorpion revealed the scope of the operation in chilling detail. Ortega was working as part of a multinational network funded by shadowy corporate and military interests. Their goal was to transport bioengineered predators across borders, using legitimate trucking routes to hide the cargo in plain sight. The enhanced creatures were part of a military research project that had gone rogue, designed as both biological weapons and surveillance tools. The cold storage systems aren't just for transport, Scorpion explained. The creatures are hyper-intelligent, but their aggression is kept in check by temperature regulation. If the systems fail, they become unstoppable. Logan shook his head. And they've been moving these things across the country? Through civilian areas? Yeah, Scorpion confirmed. And anyone who gets in the way, well, you've seen what happens. Diana clenched her fists. This wasn't just about one cartel. It was a system built on fear, corruption, and blood money. The stakes were higher than she had imagined. Who's calling the shots? She demanded. Good luck finding out, Scorpion said with a grim chuckle. There's layers to this. Ortega doesn't even know the full picture. But I can tell you this, there's a port facility near the border. That's where they stage the shipments before they move inland. You hit that, and you'll cripple the operation for a while. Diana stood up, her mind racing. The port facility was their next target. If they could intercept the next shipment and gather more evidence, they might finally have enough to take the entire network down. Let's move, she told Logan. We're going to hit that port. As Diana prepared the team for the mission, Ethan approached her with a tense expression. We've got a problem, he said quietly. What is it? I was monitoring the radio chatter. Someone's been feeding information to an outside contact, Ethan explained. It's encrypted, but I traced the signal to one of our own trucks. Diana's eyes narrowed. A mole? Looks that way, Ethan confirmed. They confronted the suspect, a driver named Carlos, who had been with the network since its early days. Under pressure, Carlos admitted that he had been leaking information to Ortega's men in exchange for protection. He insisted that he was coerced, but Diana wasn't in a forgiving mood. You put all of us at risk, she said coldly. You're done. Carlos was disarmed and taken into custody. The team doubled their security protocols, knowing that Ortega might already be aware of their plan to hit the port. Night fell as the convoy moved again, heading toward the port facility that Scorpion had described. Every driver was on high alert, their weapons ready. Mira coordinated surveillance from a remote outpost, feeding them real-time intelligence on cartel movements. We've got cartel scouts patrolling the highways, Mira warned. They're expecting trouble. Let them watch, Diana replied. We're going to give them a show. As the port came into view, the tension reached a breaking point. Trucks and security vehicles were lined up near the loading docks, their floodlights casting eerie shadows on the shipping containers. Armed guards patrolled the area, and Diana knew they were walking into a hornet's nest. This is it, she muttered. Everyone knows the plan. We take control of the main container yard and secure the evidence. No mistakes. The battle for the truth was about to begin, and Diana was prepared for whatever came next. The port facility loomed ahead, a sprawling maze of shipping containers, cranes, and loading docks. Bright floodlights illuminated the area, casting long shadows over the rows of towering metal crates. Armed cartel soldiers and corrupt security teams patrolled in tight formations. This was Ortega's stronghold, a critical hub for his bioengineered cargo operations. Diana's convoy pulled to a stop in a secluded area just outside the perimeter, hidden in the shadows of a massive storage yard. We're here, Logan whispered, his voice tense over the radio. Thermal scans show heavy movement around the central docks. They've got at least 30 armed personnel on site. Perfect, Diana muttered, her eyes narrowing as she surveyed the facility through binoculars. She spotted high-value targets, supervisors issuing orders to guards, vehicles loaded with sealed containers. Somewhere in that labyrinth was their real prize, proof of the network's full extent. Scorpion was right, Logan added. They've got backup teams stationed near the south gate. If things go sideways, they'll close in fast. We won't let them, Diana replied. Everyone knows the plan. We hit them hard and fast before they can react. Secure the container yard and take control of their communications center. Got it, Mira chimed in through the secure channel. I'm monitoring cartel radio chatter. They're on edge, expecting trouble, but they don't know where it's coming from. Diana took a deep breath. This mission could cripple the entire operation if they succeeded. But failure would mean death, and not just for them. It would be the end of the network they'd built. All right, she said firmly. Let's move. Under cover of darkness, Diana's team split into groups. Marco and his truckers positioned their rigs strategically at the facility's access points, ready to block any escape routes. Logan led a small unit toward the communications center to disrupt the cartel's surveillance and radio networks. Diana and Ethan moved with a group of armed drivers, weaving through rows of containers toward the central loading zone. The air was thick with tension, every sound amplified in the eerie stillness. The distant hum of machinery echoed through the port, mingling with the faint shouts of workers and guards. "Keep it quiet," Diana whispered, raising her hand to signal a halt. She crouched behind a stack of crates and scanned the area. A patrol of cartel gunmen passed by, their footsteps crunching on gravel. "How many?" Ethan asked softly. "5," Diana answered. "We'll need to take them down without raising an alarm." Ethan nodded and drew his suppressed rifle. Diana signaled for 2 other drivers to flank the patrol. Within seconds, the guards were silently neutralized, their bodies hidden behind the containers. The group pressed forward, closing in on the loading zone. Logan's voice crackled over the radio. "We're in position. Communications center secured. You're clear to engage." "Copy that," Diana replied. "Let's make some noise." Diana raised her hand, giving the signal. The night exploded into chaos as gunfire erupted from all directions. Truckers hidden among the containers fired at the guards, catching them off guard. The cartel's security teams scrambled for cover, shouting in confusion as bullets tore through their defensive positions. "Move. Secure the main yard," Diana ordered, her voice cutting through the gunfire. She sprinted toward a control station near the docks, firing as she ran. Ethan and the others followed, laying down suppressing fire. Explosions rocked the facility as Marco's drivers used improvised charges to disable key infrastructure. Fuel depots ignited in flames, creating plumes of smoke that obscured the floodlights. The port was turning into a battlefield, exactly as Diana had planned. "They're falling back to the central office," Logan reported. "We've got them cornered." "Not for long," Diana said. "They'll call in reinforcements if we don't shut this down fast." As the team pushed deeper into the port, the cartel began to regroup. Reinforcements arrived from the south gate, armed with military-grade weapons. Diana saw the telltale flash of mounted machine guns and heard the sharp cracks of sniper fire. "Incoming!" Logan shouted over the radio. "They've got heavy firepower." Diana ducked behind a stack of containers as bullets ricocheted around her. One of the trucks nearby exploded in a ball of fire, sending shrapnel flying. She winced as debris struck her armored vest. "We need air support, or something," Ethan yelled, firing at the advancing cartel forces. "No one's coming," Diana snapped. "It's just us. Keep them pinned down while Logan gets control of their systems." Marco's voice came through the radio next. "We've got barricades up at the east entrance, but they're pushing hard. I don't know how long we can hold." "Hold as long as you can," Diana replied. "We're almost there." Amid the chaos, Diana and her team reached a secured storage area near the docks. A massive container marked with classified military insignias loomed ahead, surrounded by electronic locks and reinforced steel barriers. This was what they had come for, the centerpiece of Ortega's operation. Logan appeared beside her, panting. "We've hacked their internal network, got control of the cameras and their backup generators. But the data we pulled... Diana, you need to see this." He handed her a tablet displaying classified files. Blueprints, experiment logs, transport manifests. The documents revealed the true nature of the operation. The enhanced creatures weren't just weapons. They were prototypes for a broader program involving human experimentation and biogenetic warfare. "They're testing this on civilians," Logan said grimly. "Every major city on the route, people disappeared. Drivers, workers, anyone who got in their way." Diana's stomach turned. "We end it. Right here." She turned to the others. "Breach the container. I want every piece of evidence secured. No more secrets." As the team worked to open the container, the sound of approaching vehicles grew louder. Diana's eyes widened as she saw a convoy of black SUVs storming into the port. Ortega himself was leading the charge, flanked by his elite enforcers. "It's him," she muttered. "Ortega's here." The cartel leader stepped out of his vehicle, his face contorted with rage. "Pierce," he roared, "you think you can destroy everything I built? You're just a driver playing soldier." Diana leveled her rifle at him. "And you're just a coward hiding behind monsters." "It's over, Ortega." Ortega laughed coldly. "Over? No. This is just the beginning. With a wave of his hand, his enforcers opened fire. The port descended into a brutal firefight as both sides clashed in a final confrontation. Diana's team fought with everything they had, using the terrain to their advantage. Marco's drivers rammed through enemy vehicles with their rigs, creating makeshift barricades. Ethan covered Diana as she advanced toward Ortega's position. They exchanged gunfire, the battle raging around them like a storm. Explosions tore through the docks as more fuel tanks ignited. Finally, Diana cornered Ortega near a collapsed crane. He raised his hands, a sneer still plastered on his face. "You think killing me will stop this?" he taunted. "The people behind this, they'll erase you like dust." "I'm not going to kill you," Diana said coldly. "You're going to answer for every life you destroyed." She knocked him unconscious with the butt of her rifle. The cartel's forces crumbled without Ortega's leadership. The port was under Diana's control, and the remaining guards surrendered. Federal agents, tipped off by Myra's intelligence network, were en route to take custody of the evidence. Logan approached, his face streaked with dirt and sweat. "We did it. The whole operation's coming down?" Diana nodded, watching as her team secured the container. "This isn't just about Ortega. It's bigger than him. But now the world will know the truth." As dawn broke over the smoldering ruins of the port, Diana allowed herself a moment of relief. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. "Let's finish this," she said softly, her gaze hardened with resolve. The convoy roared across the empty highways, pushing through the first light of dawn. Ortega was unconscious, bound and secured in one of the transport trucks. Behind them, the port facility lay in ruins. Its smoldering remains a testament to the battle they had fought. They had captured critical evidence, transport manifests, experimental research logs, and Ortega himself, the key to exposing the operation's true masterminds. In the lead truck, Diana Pierce gripped the steering wheel, exhaustion tugging at her senses. Despite the victory at the port, her mind raced with thoughts of what would come next. They had won a battle, but the war was far from over. "Logan, status update," she said into her headset. "All vehicles accounted for," Logan replied from the convoy's mobile command truck. "We're broadcasting some of the data to the network. It's going viral. Media outlets are already picking up on the story, but there's a problem." Diana tensed. "What problem?" "There's chatter on encrypted military channels," Logan explained. "They're mobilizing. Someone high up wants to contain this fast. They're framing us as terrorists, claiming the port attack was part of a smuggling operation gone wrong." Diana swore under her breath. "They're trying to rewrite the narrative before the truth gets out." "Exactly," Logan said. "If they control the official story, it won't matter how much evidence we have." Diana thought for a moment, then made her decision. "We need a public move. Something too big for them to cover up. Get Mira on the line. We need to organize a broadcast." The convoy pulled into a secluded truck stop deep in neutral territory, where Mira and her intelligence contacts had set up a secure communications hub. Inside the diner, the core members of the resistance gathered around a makeshift command center. Screens displayed news feeds, social media posts, and live surveillance of cartel and military movements. Mira leaned over a laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "We've got a window," she said. "If we broadcast the evidence through multiple channels at once, they won't be able to shut it down in time. But we'll need a face, someone who can deliver the message clearly and directly." All eyes turned to Diana. She hesitated, the weight of the responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. "You're the reason we're here," Ethan said quietly. "You led us through all of this. People will listen to you." Diana nodded slowly. "All right, let's do it." Diana sat in front of the camera, the weight of the moment settling over her. The room was filled with the hum of computers and radio equipment. Mira gave her a thumbs up as the broadcast went live. Diana took a deep breath and began to speak. "My name is Diana Pierce. I'm a trucker, and for months, my team and I have fought against a dangerous conspiracy operating across America's highways. What I'm about to tell you isn't just a story about crime or corruption. It's a warning. There are people in power who have used our roads to transport experimental biological weapons. They've hidden behind cartels and criminal organizations, silencing anyone who got in their way. They've murdered truckers, destroyed communities, and manipulated the truth. But we're done being silent." She paused, letting the gravity of her words sink in. "We have proof," she continued. "You'll see the documents, the footage, and the testimonies of those who survived. This isn't just our fight. It's about every driver, every family, and every person who uses these roads. We're taking back control. We're taking back our highways." The broadcast cut to footage from the port raid, images of bioengineered predators, cartel soldiers, and the classified container. Files and manifests flashed on screen, exposing the scope of the operation. Within minutes, social media exploded with reactions. As the broadcast spread, Diana knew it wouldn't be long before the enemy retaliated. Logan confirmed it moments later. "We've got military units mobilizing," he said. "They're trying to discredit the broadcast, but too many people have seen it. The media's starting to ask questions they can't dodge." "Ortega's not going to sit quietly either," Ethan added. "If he's got contacts, they'll try to silence him before he can testify." "Not if we move first," Diana replied. "We're taking Ortega to a federal safe zone. He's going to talk, and we're going to make sure everyone hears it." The convoy set off again, heading for a secure federal outpost where agents loyal to their cause were waiting. But as they neared a desolate stretch of highway, Logan's voice crackled with urgency. "Hostiles inbound. Multiple vehicles on both sides of the road. Brace for impact," Diana shouted. SUVs and armored trucks surged onto the highway, blocking their path. Gunfire erupted as cartel forces, backed by rogue military units, launched a full-scale assault. Diana swerved to avoid an explosion as a grenade detonated nearby. "Get to cover," Ethan yelled, firing from the back of his truck. Diana slammed on the brakes and dove behind the truck's door for cover. The sound of bullets and roaring engines filled the air. Marco's truckers fought back fiercely, using their rigs to ram enemy vehicles off the road. "We can't stay here," Logan shouted over the radio. "They're trying to box us in." Diana assessed the situation. They were outnumbered, but not outmatched. "Marco, flank them with the heavy rigs," she ordered. "Logan, find us an escape route." The truckers executed the maneuver flawlessly. Marco's convoy rammed through the enemy's defensive line, scattering vehicles in a violent collision. Diana fired a burst from her rifle, taking down a sniper positioned on a ridge. "Route clear," Logan called out. "Move now." The convoy surged forward, breaking free of the ambush. As they sped away, Diana saw the cartel forces retreating, their assault broken. By the time they reached the federal outpost, the broadcast had gone global. News networks across the world were airing the story. Diana and her team watched as journalists reported on the bioengineering program, the cartel's involvement, and the battle at the port. Federal agents escorted Ortega into a secure facility where he would testify under heavy protection. Logan received a message on his secure line. "Congress just announced an emergency hearing," he said. "They're demanding answers from every agency involved." Mira grinned. "Looks like they can't sweep this one under the rug." Diana finally allowed herself a moment to breathe. They had done it. The truth was out, and the world was watching. But deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. The federal courtroom was packed to capacity. Journalists, senators, and civilian witnesses filled every seat, their attention fixed on the front of the room. The tension was palpable as Diana Pierce sat beside Mira, Logan, and Ethan. Across from them, a panel of high-ranking officials prepared to answer for the conspiracy that had unraveled over the past few weeks. Ortega, now under federal custody, was waiting in the wings, ready to testify. "This is where it changes," Logan whispered, leaning toward Diana. "Yeah," Diana murmured, her gaze steady. "They'll finally have to face the truth." The chairperson called the hearing to order, her voice firm. "This hearing will investigate allegations of unauthorized military research, criminal transportation networks, and mass corruption within both federal and state agencies." The first witness called was Ortega. Flanked by federal guards, he entered the courtroom, his usual arrogance replaced by a resigned expression. He raised his right hand to take the oath, his voice low but clear. As Ortega's testimony unfolded, the entire room fell silent. He spoke of secret deals with military contractors, the bioengineering experiments, and the use of cartel networks to move the enhanced predators across national highways. He provided names, documents, and recordings that exposed the operation's highest-level sponsors. These weren't just cartel shipments, Ortega explained. They were sanctioned by powerful people, corporations, government officials. They thought no one would ever know. The senators questioned him for hours, peeling back layer after layer of deceit. Diana watched as the truth was laid bare, but she knew it wasn't enough. The people behind the project wouldn't give up without a fight. By the time the hearing adjourned, the fallout had already begun. Breaking news reports flooded the airwaves, summarizing the shocking revelations. High-ranking military officials were subpoenaed, corporate leaders faced criminal investigations, and several police chiefs across multiple states were arrested for their roles in covering up the operation. At Rose's truck stop, truckers gathered around a television, cheering as the headlines rolled in. Marco stood near the counter, exchanging handshakes with drivers who had been part of the resistance from the beginning. "This is it," he said with a grin. "They're finally getting what they deserve." But Diana, watching the celebration from a corner booth, remained cautious. "This isn't over," she said softly to Mira. "They'll try to regroup, rebuild. They always do." Mira nodded. "That's why we stay vigilant. Our network's stronger than ever. They won't be able to move a crate without us knowing." In the days that followed, the trucker network expanded internationally. Requests poured in from other countries seeking to replicate their success. Diana and Mira coordinated with these groups, providing intelligence and training on how to monitor transport routes, identify suspicious activities, and protect their communities. At a strategy meeting in Rose's back office, Logan outlined the next steps. "We've identified 3 more facilities tied to similar operations," he reported. "They've gone dark since the hearings started, but we've got eyes on all of them." "Good," Diana replied. "We need to keep the pressure on. If we stay organized, they won't be able to hide anywhere." Federal agencies also reached out, offering new partnerships. For the first time, law enforcement was seeking the trucker network's help rather than opposing them. "We're going to maintain transparency this time," one federal agent assured them during a conference call. "We can't afford another disaster like this." "We'll hold you to that," Diana said firmly. Despite the victories, a shadow still loomed over the team. In the days after the hearings, Diana received a cryptic message from an unknown number. "You've made powerful enemies," the message read. "They won't forget." Mira traced the source to a dormant government satellite system. It was a warning, a reminder that the people behind the operation still had resources and influence. "What do you want to do?" Ethan asked. Diana stared at the message for a moment before deleting it. "We keep going. They want us scared. We don't give them that power." As time passed, America's highways became safer than they had been in years. With the cartel dismantled and the secret operations exposed, truckers began reclaiming their routes. Rose's Diner became a symbol of the resistance. Drivers from across the country stopped there to share stories, exchange information, and train new members of the network. "You've built something incredible," Mira said to Diana one evening, watching as drivers discussed security protocols over coffee. "We all built it," Diana replied. "It's bigger than me now. And that's exactly how it should be." On a cool, quiet evening, Diana stood outside the truck stop, gazing out at the highway. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the endless stretch of road. She felt a rare sense of peace, knowing that the highways were no longer controlled by fear and corruption. Ethan approached, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this," he said, handing her one. "Thanks," she said with a small smile. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the trucks roll by. "So, what now?" Ethan asked after a while. "We keep doing what we've always done," Diana answered. "We drive, we protect, and we make sure no one ever takes control of these roads again." She climbed into her Peterbilt's cab, the familiar hum of the engine filling the air. Logan's voice crackled over the radio. "You ready to roll?" "Always," Diana replied, shifting into gear. Behind her, a convoy of trucks followed suit, their headlights cutting through the night. The war for the highways was over, but the mission continued. They were more than truckers now. They were guardians of the road, united by a shared purpose. No one would ever use their highways for darkness again. As Diana drove into the horizon, she knew that the world had changed. The truth was out, and it could no longer be silenced.